Welcome to our Baylor Parents Network video today, and we are so excited to be talking with the University Chaplain, Dr. Burt Burleson. Welcome. Thank you so much.
It's really good to be here, Gail.
And we asked to talk to you today to talk to our parents about, my goodness, spring is almost over. They are going to be done with school in just a couple weeks. Can't believe it. But we know that everybody is excited, as I was, to have my students come home for the summer after the school year. And I was a little bit surprised when they came because while we were excited and they were glad to be done, there were some adjustments to make. And I never would have predicted it. And some of the adjustments were handled a little differently by my husband than they were by me. Right. So I thought you have this wealth of knowledge that you can maybe give parents some insight as to what they might expect or not expect and what might take place.
And we went through that too. My wife and I have two college graduates, and so I can remember those days anticipating, are they going to be different and how will that be for us? And it's not unusual in the same way for parents who are trying to figure out how to get a 1-year-old to eat. They're going to handle that differently. So anticipating some of that might be helpful. Where are the places that you normally, because you're different human beings, where are the places that you just approach parenting differently? And some conversation ahead of time about that would probably be helpful.
With each other.
Right.
That's a good point. Okay.
So some of the things you might expect, and I suspect you could guess what they are. They've been pretty much able to go and do what they want. Mm-hmm. Though they have curfews and things, they're able to go here and go there and not have to think about calling in and letting somebody know where they are. And some of them are going to do this just by nature. They're just the kind of kid that came out of the womb saying, how can I help you feel more secure and better? So they're going to call. And They're going to let you know. Some of them, it's just not going to cross their mind. And it might feel insensitive. It might be the kind of thing where you find yourself thinking, I can't believe you would stay out this late and not call me. They haven't really necessarily thought about it. Some of them might have actually thought about it and said, well, by God, I hadn't had to do that for the last 9 months. Why should I have to do it now? So some of the just being in the household thing and being respectful of other people, there'll be some of our students that are going to have to be reminded about that. It just helps us sleep better when we know where you are. It's just kind of a common courtesy. And yet you'd kind of like not to have to remind them of those kind of things.
Right.
But think through it beforehand, how you go about doing it. I wouldn't do, young lady, you're living under my roof. I wouldn't go that direction.
Right.
As a general rule, whether you're talking about that or maybe bumping into something new within them, and I'll come back to that, figuring out how to stay just non-anxious, I think, as a parent, is something you got to do from early on, but I'll just tell you, it doesn't change much when they get into their 30s.
That's right.
And there's always this sense of how can I just engage this from a place of peace and trust, for me, trust in God. But it's also controlling my own anxiety, because that's about all I have control over.
Isn't that the truth?
Anymore. As parents, we begin to try to be friends and parents with adult children, and it's just a different thing.
It is a hugely different dynamic.
Yeah.
And I think just like when we deal with friends, what would be some of the things that the student might be going through? Like if I see a girlfriend that I know is having issues with something, I don't know what it is, I handle her a certain way. It wouldn't be how I would handle my child if I looked at them as a child. But what are some of the things the student might be struggling with now that they're coming home?
Yeah, so first of all, it could be, depending on their personality and the way they tend to approach life, they could be really working on some things internally. They might be thinking about religious beliefs, for instance, things that they have begun to consider that they hadn't considered before in terms of things that really matter to them. It might look different politically for them. They may have had a class that really sparked some passion and interest in things, and those positions that they may be kind of experimenting with, right? Because they were here growing up, and now they're going to try this on. might be off-putting or disturbing or worry you to some extent. And again, figuring out how to be non-anxious about that. And I liked your thinking about it. How would I approach this with a friend? So you might sort of try on that question every now and then, even though you still have a role as a parent to play.
Right. And that was the struggle in our home, honestly, was the difference of political beliefs wasn't hugely different, but it was funny how I realized that as a parent, I should let them express it. Let them just talk about it. Because like you said, they're just kind of trying it on too. And they're an adult.
So learn to say, tell me about that.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So it sounds like you're really, working on some new ideas. Yeah, I've been working on those new ideas. You're listening maybe more than you are forming. Until they say, well, what about this? Where are you on this?
Right.
And then you get to weigh in, and I think you're going to find that what the research says is true. You still have the most influence in their life at this point.
Right. But maybe it's squashed if you hammer like they're 5 years old and you're trying to get a value into them.
There's a sense in which they have to grant this to you again.
Thank you. Yep, that's so true.
Yeah.
Well, also, obviously, there's a lot of our parents who are parents of graduates. They're going to be graduating in a couple weeks. And, I mean, that's a whole different set of feelings and adjustments. And, what might you say to those parents?
Well, there are going to be some that are having some anxiety in addition to their excitement about if they have a job. And then they're going to be some that are really anxious about, am I ever going to get a job? Some of my friends have one. I don't have one yet. The boomerang thing is real. We've experienced that in our home where they circle back to us.
Okay, I was going to say, what's the boomerang thing?
Yeah, they circle back to you because of the nature of the economy and jobs, and it's really hard to say, well, how many calls did you make today? To not say that, rather.
Right.
Did you hear from anybody? Because here's the thing. I mean, eventually my son said, I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know when someone calls me back. It is really hard to not coach at that point. And you do have to, I think. There may be some of our students who have some lingering adolescence, and you may need to figure out what that looks like in the context of your house, if their stay is going to be longer than a couple of weeks before they go to work. Some of them may be there for a while. That's I don't know what the average is, but
you know what? That's a good question.
We've experienced that in our home.
Okay.
And it has been good and yet also challenging at times.
Something I didn't think of, that part of it. Is there anything else before we wrap up our message today that you can think of might be something else that parents, they can rejoice in their students completing the current year, but is there anything else that you might give them just for advice to hang on to for the summer? I
would look for just chances to make lots of really good memories in these days. And it really is fun when your kids begin, you see the maturing thing happening. You see the depth beginning to take place. It's fun when they can articulate themselves in ways that maybe they weren't able to do before. And you find yourself thinking, there's shifts in cognition. Their mind is changing and their spiritual life is changing. And it's really fun. And play a lot of good games.
There you go.
Sit around the table and watch movies and just have a really good time.
That's wonderful.
It won't be too long until they're off in some other place.
That's right.
Raising their own kids and doing their own thing. And this era will have passed.
Well, thank you so much. I hope you all have found that helpful. Obviously, you can always contact our office and ask us any additional questions. But Burt came to the expert, to help our parents in this next season. So
my pleasure.
Thank you so much.